So with that, that's kind of what I've got on the funding update. I will say that I remain optimistic that with a change in administration that took place today on the federal level, that we may see, whether the name of it is CARES or it takes a different form. My hope is that we will get some additional, whether it be a stimulus or some type of funding to help to continue, the work that's necessary to get the community, the country, the world out of this pandemic. And so we'll sort of see how that progresses. I remain optimistic, and hopefully we'll have some answers here in the near future.
Okay. All right. So that's your presentation. Yeah, I think especially, I think we're going to see hopefully an improvement in getting the vaccine out, which is what has been really, kind of bungled so far. But that would be good. We turn our testing sites to vaccination sites as soon as we can. And once we get on with that, we can hopefully get back to being open and be on our way back to normal. So my fellow committee members, do you want to do either? I'm seeing Sarah nod, so I'm going to go to her first.
Actually, Aisha's hand was up first.
I'm sorry, I'm not, see, that's right. When there's a screen, can you take the screen share down? There we are. Okay, sorry, Aisha, you could go ahead. Go ahead, Aisha.
No worries, thank you. So one, could you just address the cannabis one more time? You said it was from one business, and it's from what time to what time?
It covered a period of time of July through September.
July to September, and the cannabis business that we are talking about in particular actually started in mid-August, correct? They opened up mid-August.
I don't know off the top of my head. Maybe Dustin can answer that. I don't know that we know the specific.
Okay, so their grand opening was like mid-August, right? Sometime.
I think I think that's right.
Yeah. So that's roughly a month, which, that's actually pretty significant. And with one business being open, so that's very hopeful, at least for some of the things that, we want to do. And we know COVID has also impacted every business, including cannabis. So that's good. I also want to highlight the CARES Act funding and just the reimbursement from our government and how this worked. I really want us to be very transparent to the public about this particular piece, because everyone assumes it's a dollar for dollar reimbursement, and it is not, right? So if whatever we end up, stating how much we've spent on this effort as a city regarding COVID, the vaccinations, the efforts, everything that we've done, which I will commend the city and the staff, because I think we've done it all, if not a lot more than expected. But I also want the public to understand that this is also deepening the impacts in the pockets of the city as a whole, which obviously it is a priority, but the fact that we are not getting dollar for dollar. So a lot of businesses and so forth have reached out to me in particular that thinking that, hey, it's just dollar for dollar, it's not a big deal, you guys get reimbursed anyway. So just tempering the expectation of the community and just understand. I just think transparency is best. So let's definitely do that. And then I know that I'm very, very concerned about moving forward because I do believe this quarter that we're in right now, from January to I want to say March, it's always the slowest, especially amongst retail businesses. And I know because our family would always see January through March the slowest. I do want to say that I do believe that it gets worse before it gets better. And also with the holiday season and so much more, I've heard from medical experts that we will see even more of a spike of people testing positive for the coronavirus for the next couple of weeks, if not months, and then hopefully something a little bit lower than that. So those are my comments, I guess, questions and concerns. But for the most part, I do appreciate this. I really appreciate your staff in particular that has been working really hard to just keep track of it. And then, let us know exactly what is needed from us. Definitely. Thank you.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Sarah?
Thank you. Yes, I will add my appreciation both for all the work that's being done on COVID. I saw the Instagram post today kind of reiterated some of the reports we've been receiving about all of the things that the city really took a leadership role in, and I appreciate that, as well as keeping us up to date with the finances of the city. So thank you for today's report. So it looks like in terms of just the information presented today, there's nothing drastic we need to do different than what we've already sort of planned for. That may continue to evolve, obviously, but as of right now, it doesn't seem like there's new policy direction for right now. I want to go back to the property tax change in a minute, but I want to focus on this year first. Am I understanding that correctly?
Correct. So what we how to say this correctly? We're seeing about what we budgeted for and what we projected at the when we adopted the budget in late June of 2020. What I will say is, I did not anticipate that the pandemic would still be going as of January 20th, 2021, with really no end in sight. My hope is that we sort of continue at or above the trajectory that we've seen thus far. There's no one in the city that wants us to have improved revenues more than I. It makes life a lot easier on everyone. My fear is that as the pandemic goes longer, especially with the current shelter-in-place order and the level that we're at, that we will continue to see businesses that were struggling and limping along and hoping to see an end in sight at the end of the year, or whatever arbitrary date that they had in their minds. The longer this goes, the harder it will be on those businesses. Certainly, if additional stimulus is available, that will help. But I'm certain that there are some that are won't be able to hang on any longer. My hope as well is for situations like that, hopefully they will be replaced and we'll have new businesses coming in, not just for the purposes of sales tax, but for the community as well, as people that need to live, eat, enjoy, shop, etc. So, at this point, we're not making drastic changes in policy or approach. But as we proceed over the next few months, and as we enter the fiscal year 2022 budget cycle, anybody's crystal ball is as clear as mine, and hopefully we'll have some more information to base those decisions off of, and see the direction the regional, state, and global economy are headed.
I appreciate all of that, and Councilmember Rob's point about managing expectations fits well into that as well. So thank you both for that. And so then I just lastly wanted to circle back to what you had said, Nicole, about the ratcheting down of the expected property taxes. And I apologize, I missed, when is that expected to kick in?
I can respond to that. So maybe not everyone is as big of a property tax geek as I am. The assessor's office goes out each January and does their assessments. So they're probably literally out today as we're speaking here, working through their assessments throughout the county. So the property taxes that the city receives this fiscal year, so in December and in April, will be based on the assessments that were done in January of 2020. which was before we were aware that the pandemic was hitting. The market was still doing well. The economy was still doing fantastically. And so we hit the 2%. So the rate, the increase that the max increase that the assessment could go up for properties that are being held. For properties that are being sold or disposed of, that limitation doesn't exist. So for this year, the assessor's office is saying that they are using a factor of 1.036. So it's less than 2%. That's something that, we had a version of this discussion when we adopted the budget in June, sort of discussing that this was likely and that we may even see a dip. It is a positive sign that we're not seeing a dip, but certainly not the best news in the world, because I think we will see a leveling off. Hopefully that will be temporary, given it's the general fund's number one source of revenue.
And certainly I know it's a somewhat of a relief to folks, especially who may be struggling with mortgages, et cetera, to have a lower property tax value. So on the one hand, I'm kind of relieved that that's happening, but it's not like we were super flush to begin with. And so if we're looking at a budget where not only are we still coping with COVID impacts, but we're also coping with lower property tax revenue, we're going to have a lot of work to do. So you already know that. I'm just reminding myself in this moment. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Mayor, back to you.
Sorry. So first of all, on the property tax increase, the way I read the staff report and looked at it, I thought you were saying that we actually were expecting a little bit more. Is that correct? That because we get the property taxes in December, and so the same period comparison wasn't. Oh, maybe I reasoned wrong. I'm sorry, but you actually weren't saying that we should get a little bit more. Okay.
This year we're a little bit ahead, but in 2022 fiscal year, it could be less.
But that what they showed us wasn't necessarily comparable. For some reason, I was reading it as not necessarily comparable to.
I think I may know. I think I may know what you're referring to. So what we showed you in the first number for November, those are sort of smaller sources of revenue. Don't include secured property taxes, which is the biggest chunk. So on the first chart that Nicole was speaking to, that had all of the general fund revenues, there was numbers of less than 2 million each year. And then in December, we saw the big December payment that came in, and it was actually higher than I anticipated, which was fantastic news. I guess the sort of damper on that good news is that we can anticipate that we will absolutely not see the same or similar increase next year unless we have essentially a crazy market in which houses are going, turning over frequently and for higher prices than they're currently being assessed. So, given the recession and the current situation of the economy, I wouldn't anticipate that. That doesn't mean it's impossible, but certainly not how any of the experts are projecting at this point.
Okay, and then I just wanted to ask about. First of all, why you think UUT is down? Because I would have thought with people, working from their homes and all of the extra, phone stuff alone that's being used. And although I suppose as far as other types of, natural gas, you're having to account for maybe businesses being closed, but we don't really have all that many big offices. So I don't know. I'm just wondering why that is down. And then the other one was franchise fees and what caused the drop there.
Yeah, and I don't have a great answer on the franchise fees. That was something that actually when we went over this earlier with the executive team, Director Ameri was also questioning that. So we're going to look into that because that source shouldn't change. Our main payer of franchise fees is based on an agreement, and the revenue should be coming in. So it could be a timing issue that will play out over the course of the entire fiscal year, and maybe didn't in the first part of the year. The UUT, I've got to assume that it is business related. Related to businesses not either not open as much or closing off parts of the section. We know we've got restaurants that are functioning in a limited capacity or not functioning at all. I also have to assume that some of the businesses out in the industrial are reducing their productivity and probably some of their usage. That's pretty much my assessment of the situation.
Okay, and then the cannabis, that dispensary did open, and Aisha says August. I think that sounds right to me too from my memory. So we wouldn't have seen yet any sales. We wouldn't have seen the sales tax, even though some has, I'm sure, been collected. Or
yeah, and we have received a payment. As of today. I think it was actually a couple of days ago. It may have been late last week that we received the first payment from them. And we will absolutely continue to monitor that and bring updates to council regularly, sort of as it develops, since it's a new revenue source, since it's one that we're all tracking. And we'll do that at probably more frequently than we do many of the other revenue updates. Just to keep council apprised. Once we get better sense for, cycles and routine, what the routine we expect for that revenue source, then we'll start looking at it more on a quarterly or basis like we do many of the other revenues. But until then, we'll keep bringing back information, especially as we have new businesses open and, get an idea of what they'll be, what their revenues and tax revenues might be.
Okay, and then I would just agree with some of the comments who were made, have been made about I do think that with the change in government in Washington and continuing focus on the pandemic and economic recovery, and already we've seen, because of the nature of our community in some ways, partly because of how we've stepped up, but also partly because of more the demographic of having more low-income people, making us had an entitlement city. We have seen funding come through there. I would think with the new administration that there are going to be, it won't be like general fund revenue necessarily, but I do think we're going to see more funds that we can use in good ways coming from those sources, even at the state level too. So, in fact, I was just told that we're getting money through the state for our housing planning, our housing element development. We're getting, it's called LEAP funding, local, funding to, because of we're getting new RENA numbers, and we need to look at our housing plan. And when they submitted the request, they actually were asked, well, you should be applying for a little bit more, because we have this more funding. We have this funding over here, the REAP funding, the regional, and we can add some in. So they applied for another program. So I think, I'm just trying to be a little more optimistic in reaction to all, I know what we're all getting, including me, getting very tired of how we're living. And I think it has to be impacting revenues in a lot of different ways. But, there might be bright spots on the horizon too. So let's hope they come through. And with that, unless anybody else has anything to add on this topic, we thank you for the information. And your hand is still up, Councilmember Lamnon. I can see them now, but you didn't have anything to add. Okay. All right. So then we're going to move on to the next item, which is an oral report on COVID-19 funding update.
So we actually burrowed right through that and provided it there. We kind of combined the two. So I apologize.
Oh, okay. that you've
Oh.
already told us what you okay. So that means we can go to the number 4, the oral update on the employee home loan program.
Yeah. So
Wait a minute. I'm sorry to my fellow committee members. Did you, either of you want to add anything under this item that we just?
No, thank you. I saw that he smushed it together.
Okay. All right. And then, yeah, so then we'll move on to the employee loan program.
So, this is a program that council is and the committee are highly aware of. It's one that we began work on quite some time ago, really. And I think many of you know, as we walked out the door in March 2020, we had pretty much everything in place to begin this program. We had two partners, one traditional lender and the other a credit union, that we were going to be able to essentially provide city funds to offer to employees to make a down payment to purchase a home within the city of Hayward. Since that time, we, as you all know, have been in a pandemic, and the city's financial situation has changed drastically. The last time I think we spoke about this, we agreed to bring an update to the committee in January at the January meeting, and so here we are. The last time we spoke about it, I fully believed that we would be no longer in a shelter in place. And certainly, I wasn't naive enough to think that it would be completely gone, but that the economy would be doing better and we would be open. I expected the trajectory to continue the way it did sort of late summer, early fall, and that we would progressively open more and more and get back to what we used to know as normal. That being said, we haven't. The city's fiscal situation is still a bit tenuous as we continue through the pandemic, and we know that we will have additional community needs moving forward. And so at this time, I recommend that we sort of continue to pause the rolling out of the home loan. It brings me no pleasure. I'm sure it brings you all no pleasure to hear that from me. But committing at this point, $1 million+ to a program right now, when we have, such a tenuous budget situation, and we're not certain that of the end date of the pandemic and related shelter in place, and when we may start a recovery, it's my recommendation that we, pause and maybe set a date to come back, whether that be 3 months from now, with the understanding that if things are the same, then we'll come back 6 months from now and just sort of continue to provide information and have the discussion, with the understanding that there's not a will to abandon the program, and that we will continue to foster the relationships. We just rolled out to messaging to employees about the partnership with Chabot Federal Credit Union, that folks don't need a loan with them to participate. Simply by being employed, they have the ability to join and be a member of the credit union, and access all of the benefits available to them through membership. So that's really all I've got at this point. Happy to answer any questions, and continue the conversation and get feedback from the committee on their thoughts on the continued delay, on how we move forward, those sorts of things.
Okay. Aisha, you had.
Thank you. Okay, so this is I think, Director Clausen, you and I shared the same sentiment of being cautious about where we spend our money, especially now, and the fact that we aren't generating as much revenue as we'd like. My big concern is, so I just want to understand the funding, and I know I keep asking this, so I just want for clarity because there's a lot in my head. The funding from this particular home loan program would come from where?
The general fund. Essentially, it would come from fund balance, and it would be using what's sitting there to provide the funds for it, but with the understanding that it should be replenished as loan repayments come in, and sort of act as a revolving fund, assuming the program is successful and assuming that there's still both a desire for the program and a will to continue it.
Okay. Now, I will say that my number one concern, and last night at the council meeting, okay, now I can't even say it. I forgot it's like a closed session. You got myself there.
Yes, you did. Good job.
Yeah. So I just want to 100% exercise caution. You know, my biggest concern, and even also telling people about the dollar for dollar reimbursement, I just want to be very clear that my biggest concern is our 1,000+ member staff, right? Because we are spending money on these things, this is also money of how we provide services to the community. Staff obviously have a salary with us, and the general fund covers all of this. So I'm very cautious of that, as well as the fact that I know that I want a down payment assistance program for regular residents, right? And our housing trust fund has been growing. And I would like to see if we can kind of just wait to see what we can do with our housing trust fund, because those are dollars dedicated to a housing project, obviously, because of the in lieu fees. So I just really want to be cautious of the services we provide to the public, and those services are provided by our staff, right? So that's my number one.
Yeah, Councilmember Wahab, I was just going to say the housing trust fund, though, can't be used for employee home loans. That would only be used for affordable housing.
Understood, right? And that's why I just said that, you know, my number one concern would be staff. And I believe, I can't speak for all staff, but I'm sure that they care more about their salary before a down payment of some sort, right? So I just really want to caution us with that. So I agree with Director Clausen in being a little bit more patient with our economy for the time being. And then if we can do something around housing in general, especially if employees do live in Hayward, we can help in that manner if we pursued that project. And it's, again, dedicated funds for housing. So I just wanted to bring the whole picture of what we're trying to do with housing. And I know some of our staff do not live in Hayward, and hopefully they get an opportunity through that housing fund. So I just want to say that I do support your exercise of caution, because we do need to be a little bit more conservative on these things. And my biggest goal will definitely be staff and making sure that we can pay for services. So that's that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, point well taken on that. Sarah.
Thank you. So I'm okay. Well, I'm not loving the 3-month delay, but nobody is. So, you know, I can live with that. But and in that 3 months, one of the things that I'm wondering about, maybe this is already in consideration, so feel free to correct me. So I was looking at the LAIF rates, and, you know, as that chart continues to go lower and lower, the return on a home loan program, even an affordable cost one, is more than a LAIF rate, which is part of the motivation or the benefit to the city in engaging in this. And so I realized that the home loan is not as liquid as LAIF, and so there's a trade-off there. But it's one of the evaluations, and maybe you're already doing this, of the, you know, are there LAIF funds that it might make sense to redirect, if I'm making sense.
You are. I think that the connection there is a little bit hard to draw, because not all of the funds in LAIF are for the general fund, and not all of the funds in the city's investment pool are for the general fund. And so we'd still be talking about sort of fund balance that we would be using, and, for lack of a better term, tying up for, we'll just say, the term of the loan. And so, you know, we're talking about a term of should the employee meet all of the conditions and criteria, and should they stay in the house for 25 years, we'd be locking up those funds for that period of time. And so it's, the intent is to have a revolving loan fund, and to be able to fund more loans, and so the program to sort of perpetuate itself. But from a return on investment standpoint, it may make some sense. And yes, we've done that assessment. But it in Leif, as well known as it is certainly not the best investment for agencies, at least agencies like ours. It is for some who need the liquidity constantly. We have the ability to use other investment tools and sort of manage it by keeping enough in Leif and other in longer term investments, so that we get a better rate of return. But we're still talking about a finite amount of funds in the general fund. That yes, we could reduce the amount that the general fund's share of Leif, which off the top of my head I don't have that number as of any specific date. But as we've discussed, both online and offline, rate of return is generally associated with risk, and so the higher rate, the higher the risk, and so. At this point, for me, it has more to do with timing, both in the time that we're in and the time that it would tie funds up for the city when we have such a sort of uncertain near-term future.
Yeah, and that's why I'm not pushing it for today, for example. But just sort of in the. So I am hearing you, and whether or not there's flexibility with any of the other funds, given that it's a loan, whether or not, part of the reason in my mind for doing an employee home loan, because I totally agree, I want to certainly support our community members towards home ownership. Part of the reason of doing an employee loan is to pilot that risk testing. Right? We did that first with the city manager, that worked out fine. Now we do it with the employees for similar reasons, and then can move. So that's kind of part of my thinking. There was one other thought I had, but it's gone. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Mayor, can I add something? I forgot I was, thank you. And as we exercise caution, and obviously, like I said earlier, I do think salary and benefits for employees are the main priority, making sure that we're fully staffed and so forth. But one of the things regarding this home loan program that I know we talked about briefly, you guys, there was a meeting that we had at the budget committee, I want to say last summer or the summer before, where we talked about 5% and so forth. The council approved it and so forth. The thing that I want to keep highlighting, and I don't feel that we're just there yet, is the concept that I shared in regards to San Mateo County. I do believe I may have emailed the city manager, possibly yourself, but most likely the city manager, where San Mateo County provided a home loan program for their residents. And the way it did it, and this is I think the best path for the city to not take as much risk as they could potentially take, is providing that down payment assistance, right? And working with a bank or some type of institution where the moment that the home, let's say it's purchased or finalized in closing, that institution also takes that debt, and the city's paid back almost immediately after closing. And San Mateo has done this, where the individual that took the down payment assistance and bought the home is only paying one entity, not two, right? It's very clear cut for everybody. And let's say if we provided $50,000 or $100,000 to an individual, that's immediately put back in the bank and rotating back to the next person. It's a quicker turnaround, number one. It also ensures that we get our money back. And so I really want us to really take a look at that more in depth. So we don't open ourselves up to, issues and things like that. And I don't necessarily think we need to pilot this any further with like employees per se, if we were to still pursue the community effort, if it's done this way, because I do think it's one, safer, and number two, it's done more immediate with a turnaround that comes back to the city, and we're We're just letting people borrow the money for like 60 days, 80 days, 100 days, and then it comes back to us. And I think we need to find a partner, and that's, what I prefer. And the model to look at is San Mateo County. So that's my 2 cents. Sorry. Thank you. I just wanted to share that.
No, and you're talking about residents, not just an employee.
Yes.
Which
I'm
not quite sure how that
look at-
works. I mean, isn't that just they're partnering with a regular bank? So if the regular bank is,
so we provide the loan at whatever, 50,000, 100,000 to an individual, and they get the mortgage is still carried with some bank of some sort or some entity. The moment that the deal is closed, our deal of it is that we sell that portion of the return back to the bank, because the individual would have to either pay us and the bank together for the long life of the loan. Let's say $1 million home. We give them 100,000. They're paying us and the bank. Whereas this way, they just pay the bank, including our loan on top of that. And the bank is the administrator. And we just take back our money almost immediately after. San Mateo has been very fortunate to be able to do that. And I do know people that went through that program that loved it because they only pay one person. And it's very clear.
I think
I just wonder what's in it for.
Let us do some,
you always,
let us do some.
However, I'll just say, ask staff to maybe look into that and
back
to us to bring us information so we can really look at that.
And to our city manager, I know I've emailed you about this, but if you'd like more information, or I'm sure you have connections at San Mateo as well through your network. I'm happy to do so, but I think that this is a safer bet, and we don't necessarily have to pause the program any further.
Okay, well, we'll take a look into it, and I think we're all committed to making sure trying to get this program up and running, because I know there are a lot of employees who are interested in it, and I'm sure there are residents who would be interested in it as well. So we can take a look at that program in San Mateo County and see if it makes some sense.
Okay, thanks for that. And I was just going to ask again about, we had sort of, we had assessed some employee interest, and you're saying there is interest. One of the things is, if we're talking about an employee program, I mean, it really also fits into our entire region's efforts to reduce greenhouse gases, by having people be able to locate closer to where they work. And it's, as I've sat here and thought about this right now, in light of just getting ready to approve the final blueprint for Bay Area 2050, which I don't remember seeing anything like this as an idea in there, although it's a very big plan, and I did read through it. But it just occurred to me that is, it is something that, because I think we all are aware of the home ownership, that not everybody has that opportunity, or it's very difficult to get into the market. But that once you are into the market, well, the way it's worked in the past, and you can't always count on it, I suppose, houses do lose value, but in general, here it's been a pretty good deal, and you build equity, and then, I'm wondering if there wouldn't be, if there couldn't be some possible regional effort to do this at a regional level through ABAG, which has a financing mechanism. Which I'm not, it's a part of the services that ABAG offers, and they will finance certain things for their member organizations. It's not a part of the ABAG operation that I know real well here, but my understanding is like banking, and that if that it seems like a good suggestion, as many of the others we've got in there, for helping to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by promoting, and also helping to to counter inequities that we know have been present in our society, to have some kind of a regional effort at that, where you'd have more money to pool, and they probably would have better working relationships with larger financing institutions. Anyway, I'm going to throw that out there as a,
And I would partner with you on that effort, because that's familial wealth, that's generational wealth.
Really interesting idea. And I think, again, we can continue to explore it. And I think Mayor, in your role on the ABAG executive board, you know, doing some advocacy for that at that level as well. So I think there's definitely some opportunities to explore.
Yeah, I'll give it a try. This could just be a, you know, one of those like nobody will pay any attention. But for some of the other ideas in there seem a lot weirder and wilder to me than this one. So I'm going to throw it out there. And also I think talk to the person at ABAG that runs that finance organization just to get a little better understanding of how something like that could be, you know, used for something like what we have in mind here. But the tie-in to encouraging people to be closer to their jobs, which doesn't necessarily apply if you're just looking at the regular population, although you could have that as a, you know, as a criteria for getting you priority in the in getting the program if that's what you're trying to do, even if you don't work for the city, if you work for somebody else in Hayward and you're trying to get a home in Hayward because that's where you work. So
and that's honestly, we saw, I spoke to our city manager. Remember in 2019, I did suggest that we give Hayward residents priority preference, and we found out that developers don't have a problem with that. In fact, it's not even a factor that they think is an opposition or a difficult task. That is very much helping the residents of the Bay Area. So Mayor, I'd love to partner with you and help wherever I can.
Yeah, so let me get some more information and we can talk about it. Great. Okay. And we'll bring it back here when we bring this idea back. So so with that, I think that unless anybody else has anything to offer here on that. Oh, I know I wanted to ask, because I know we do have some attendees that, you know, so I just want to make sure if any of you have anything you want to offer on this, we'll give you that opportunity. And I'm sure you all know how to raise your hands if you want, and I'm not seeing that any are going up here. So I'm assuming, yes. Well, I just wanted to give you the opportunity if you wanted to weigh in. So with that, we are now at committee member and staff announcements. Anybody have anything?
Are we looking at the upcoming agendas?
Well, oh, I'm sorry. I skipped that, didn't I? Sorry.
Okay.
Yes. Number 5, review. Yes, I do want to comment on that. So go ahead. I mean, everybody's looked at it. I don't know that we need to hear from.
If you'd like, I can put it up on the screen if you just want to have the conversation with you as well.
The only thing I would like to just highlight is, I know we had talked about having extra meetings in February and March as we go through the policy innovation workshop and have updates. I think we'll sort of schedule those as we come to them. We haven't put them on the agenda per se yet, but we will work with the committee to schedule those. We're trying to still finalize all the dates of the workshops and see what makes sense when we should do check-ins with the committee. So just wanted to highlight that for everyone.
Okay, thank you for that, because actually that was going to be my comment or question about, because I knew we had talked about that, and those agendas do look pretty packed, but I kind of assumed maybe you were just waiting to schedule some extra meetings at a time when you knew there was going to be something to really talk about, you know, coming out of the other processes. So that's what you're saying to us. So, okay, thank you for that. Anybody else have any comments on it?
I do just have this. I know that scheduling is difficult because I know Director Clausen and his team also have to work on the real budget issues, right? Of like preparing the budget. So I'm not sure if we just want to also schedule the additional meetings without any thought of like really worrying about it by extending this meeting a little bit longer, having a hard stop at like 6 o'clock. Or 6:30, and then having the workshops start afterwards if we wanted to do it in that single night. I'm not sure, Mayor, if you have something after this, but I think I can plan out that way far easier.
Oh, yeah, probably. Well, it depends. It's Wednesday evening.
I think there's another committee meeting that begins at 7. I can't recall whether it's the
Community Services
CFC. Yeah. So I'm not sure that would work perfectly. I mean, I think, you know, we could certainly go until 6:45 or so. I imagine, given the lack of need to commute for everyone at this point. But you know, just trying to be respectful of that committee as well.
Okay, and then.
Oh, go ahead.
Why don't you let Yeah, take a look at the schedule. We'll be to you guys next Monday evening with sort of what the workshop series looks like. So maybe by then we can have some potential tentative dates for additional budget and finance committee meetings. I can work with the team to try and put that together. So.
And then we have already selected, or on Monday, are we going to select the individuals that serve on the, let's call it a task force or workshop?
So so there's, it's not really a selection process. Because we said we would solicit applications. It actually worked out fortuitously. We were going to solicit up to 11 members from boards and commissions, and we have exactly 11 people who submitted applications. So it worked out really well. And then we have the staff team. So we'll share all that information about who has volunteered from the commission boards and commissions, and who from staff will also be participating. So that will all be information shared on Monday night.
And to be clear, we do have union representation too, so they have a voice. Okay.
Yeah. And it's a cross section of both POA and SEIU professional staff representation from the staff group.
Okay, and do we have any from fire?
I don't know that there's anyone from fire per se, but I'll have to go back and look at the list, but there are more, for example, Mary Thomas did work in fire for a couple of years. But then, obviously there's going to be outreach to fire staff as part of the conversations and the discussions.
And the reason why I want union representation from fire as well is because if we are going to give that full packet last month that we reviewed, the full effort, I do believe fire is interested based on my conversations, and also that we just want to respect the full process and the full scope of what we want to potentially do.
I'll reach out, I'll have the team reach out, and we'll see if someone from 1909 wants to participate as well. I don't have any.
I believe Deputy Chief Vollmer is part of the proposed task force or committee or whatever, the name of the group.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I have no problem with the schedule thus far. I do hope that nothing else happens for you, Director Clausen, like we had last year, so we can do this one time, right? Thank you.
You have a heads up. In other words, you have a heads up that we're in serious financial trouble across the board, right? Okay. Well, all right. And Sarah, okay. No other comments, Sarah?
Sorry, I didn't put my hand up.
Oh, okay.
But if I could real quick, thank you. Thank you for clarifying about the special meetings. And then in February, when we talk about cannabis, are you envisioning that we'll also talk about that 1% tax component? I know that's not the referral, but it seems like
for the community foundation.
Yes.
We're actually going to bring that back as a separate discussion. So
Okay.
We're intending to bring that back with the cannabis item because the team has been working on that, and I think that just given Monica Davis had been working on that, and given the other priorities with the CSC and their funding process right now, I think she needs a few more months to pull that back together so we can come back to council and have a discussion.
That's fine. I just didn't want to lose track now that we actually have some revenue. We had said we would talk about it, so as long as it's will be scheduled, that's good.
Yes, it's on the radar screen.
Perfect. That's what I was asking. Thank you.
And Aisha.
I'm sorry. One thing I do want to ask is, and this can be via email to our city manager and Director Clausen, if we can get kind of all the different funds that we have for community benefits, because I know that we've talked about our trusts internally for the city. We've talked about the housing trust. We've talked about this community benefits out of the cannabis funds, things like that. I just want us to actually have like a one-pager and just for us on the budget committee, that these are the buckets, if you will. If you want to shoot me an email, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Did you, Madam City Manager, did you get that? I'm not sure I'm understanding the community benefit funds.
We don't really community it's not really community benefit funds, but there's different restricted funds. We have like the park impact fees, the housing trust fund.
It's more around that. So basically it's the housing trust fund. I think Director Clausen kind of understood what I was trying to say. the housing trust fund, the one that's coming out of the cannabis, the 1% there, just kind of an update overall about these buckets of money, if you will,
That's
that are
usually,
restricted for the benefit of the community.
they are part of the budget.
100%. Just, but like putting it separate and highlighting it as individual. This is how much we've raised now in the housing in lieu fees, right? You know, things like that.
Okay, we'll Dustin and I will talk, and then if we have questions, we can follow up.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's a special recycling fund too, and you know, yeah, but the information does usually appear on the budget. Okay, anything else on the schedule? Then on to committee staff announcements. Anyone? I have one, and especially since we were just talking about special funds like that housing fund, which would be a lot bigger if we still had redevelopment in California and it hadn't been dissolved in 2011. But I will say that today I attended, because I'm a member appointed by the Mayor's Conference of the now countywide oversight committee for redevelopment agencies dissolution and annual approval of their ROPS, which would be recognized obligation payment schedule, I believe, for those of you who don't speak redevelopment. But in any event, I just wanted to pass on that ours were approved without any question or comment. So just pass that along. Mary Thomas.
Great work, Mary Thomas. Yeah.
Did a good job of representing us, and actually was complimented by one of the members on this oversight board for her excellent PowerPoint presentation on the topic. So
Fantastic. That's great.
Anything else with that? If there isn't, then we will adjourn to our next meeting, which is a special meeting for us on Monday, January 25th at 7 p.m. All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Bye.
Happy Inauguration Day.
Yes, thanks everyone. Take
Oh, I
care.
feel better than I have in 4 years. For some
Mayor, I just want to tell you,
Recording stopped.
my dad that he's from the same state as our mayor in Delaware. And
Really? Your dad is from Delaware?
no.
Oh,
That's Joe Biden.
Joe Biden is from Delaware, right? Yes, I was saying I might be one of the very few people that actually voted for Joe Biden the first time he ran for Senate in 1972 in Delaware, and for Kamala Harris the first time she ran for Senate in 2016. So,
It's always good when they're from like a hometown, right? So Kamala Harris from the Bay Area, you obviously get to share that with the president. So,
well, especially when you're from a state like Delaware, which is extremely small, probably almost smaller than Alameda County, I think. But
yeah, okay, probably right. But yeah, no, definitely happy Inauguration Day, guys.
Yep. Same to all of you. Enjoy the rest of it and the rest of the 4 years or more. Bye-bye.